Hey there, what's up YouTube? It's Francis UD again. So at long last, I got another opportunity to continue reading the book Robinson Crusoe. Tonight. Yeah, it's been a while since previously I read it, aloud, while filming the whole session, So without further ado, let us begin. Resuming reading chapter 1 of Robinson Crusoe. We worked on, but the winter increasing in the hold, it was apparent that the ship would founder, and though the storm began to abate a little, yet it was not possible she could swim till we might run into any port. So the master continued firing guns for help, and the lightship, who had rid it out just ahead of us, ventured a boat out to help us. It was with the utmost hazard. The boat came near us, but it was impossible for us to get on board, or for the boat to lie near the ship's side, till at last the men rowing very heartedly, and venturing their lives to save ours, our men cast them a rope over the stern with a buoy to it. Is it buoy? Buoy. Actually, yeah, it's read buoy. A rope over the stern with a buoy to it, and then veered it out a great length, which they, after much labor and hazard, took hold of, and we hauled them close under our stern, and got all into their boat. It was to no purpose for them or us, after we were in the boat, to think of reaching their own ship, so all agreed to let her drive, and only to pull her in towards shore as much as we could. And our master promised them that if the boat was staved upon shore, he would make it good to their master. So partly rowing and partly driving, our boat went away to the northward, sloping towards the shore almost as far as Winterton Nace. We were not much more than a quarter of an hour out of our ship till we saw her sink, and then I understood for the first time what was meant by a ship foundering in the sea. I must acknowledge I had hardly eyes to look up when the seamen told me she was sinking, for from the moment that they rather put me into the boat than that I might be said to go in, my heart was, as it were, dead within me, partly with fright, partly with horror of mind, and the thoughts of what was yet before me. While we were in this condition, the men yet laboring at the oar to bring the boat near the shore. So what does oar mean? Oar. Scull, blade, paddle. Okay. We were able to see the shore. Yeah. Well, while we were in this condition, the men yet laboring at the oar to bring the boat near the shore, we could see, when our boat mounting the waves, we were able to see the shore, a great many people running along the strand to assist us when we should come near, but we made but slow way towards the shore, nor were we able to reach the shore till, being past the lighthouse at Winterton, the shore falls off to the westward towards Cromer, and so the land broke off a little the violence of the wind. Here we got in, and though not without much difficulty, got all safe on shore, and walked afterwards on foot to Yarmouth, Yarmouth, not Yarmouth, Yarmouth, yeah, Yarmouth, where, as unfortunate men, we were used with great humanity, as well by the magistrates of the town. Why is it so awkward to read this book? Magistrates, Jesus. Magistrates, not magistrates. Magistrates. Yeah, excuse me. I beg your pardon for my poor vocabulary. So let me read this again, if you don't mind. Here we got in, and though not with much difficulty, got all safe on shore, and walked afterwards on foot to Yarmouth, where, as unfortunate men, we were used with great humanity, as well by the magistrates of the town, who assigned us good quarters, as by particular merchants and owners of ships, and had money given us sufficient to carry us either to London or back to Hull, as we thought fit. Had I now had the sense to have gone back to Hull and have gone home, I had been happy, and my father, as in our blessed Saviour's parable, had even killed the fatted calf for me, for hearing the ship I went away in was cast away in Yarmouth roads. It was a great while before he had any assurances that I was not drowned. But my ill fate pushed me on now with an what? But my ill fate pushed me on now with an obstinacy that nothing could resist, and though I had several times loud cause from my reason and my more composed judgment to go home, yet I had no power to do it. I know not what to call this, nor will I urge that it is a sacred overruling decree that hurries us on to be the instruments of our own destruction, even though it be before us, and that we rush upon it with our eyes open. Certainly, nothing but some such decreed unavoidable misery, which it was impossible for me to escape, could have pushed me forward against the calm reasonings and persuasions of my most retired thoughts, and against two such visible instructions as I had met with in my first attempt. My comrade, who had helped me to harden me before, and who was the master's son, was now less forward than I. The first time he spoke to me after we were at Yarmouth, which was not till 2 or 3 days, for we were separated in the town to several quarters. I say, the first time he saw me, it appeared his tone was altered, and looking very melancholy, and shaking his head, he asked me how I did, and telling his father who I was, and how I had come this voyage only for a trial, in order to go further abroad. His father, turning to me with a very grave and concerned tone, "Young man," says he, "you ought never to go to sea any more. You ought to take this for a plain and visible token that you are not to be a seafaring man." "Why, sir," said I, "will you go to sea no more?" "That is another case," said he. "It was my calling, and therefore my duty. But as you made this voyage on trial, you see what a taste heaven has given you of what you are to accept if you persist. Perhaps this has all befallen us on your account, like Jonah in the ship of Tarshish. Pray," continues he, "what are you?" And just need to check if this saying corresponds to the Bible, to one of the parables in the Bible, the Gospel of Luke. Yeah, the parable of the prodigal son, parable, fable, comparison, tale, proverb, myth, legend, fiction, story. Adjective also means apologue, simile, meta, how do I pronounce it? There's no sound for this. Metalepsis. That's so hard, man. Okay. What are you, and on what account did you go to sea? Upon that, I told him some of my story, at the end of which he burst out into a strange kind of passion. What had I done, says he, that such an unhappy wretch should come into my ship? I would not set my foot in the same ship with thee again for £1,000. This indeed was, as I said, an excursion of his spirits, which were yet agitated by the sense of his loss, and was farther than he could have authority to go. However, he afterwards talked very gravely to me, exhorting me to go back to my father, and not tempt Providence to my ruin, telling me I might see a visible hand of heaven against me. And, young man, said he, depend upon it, if you do not go back, wherever you go, you will meet with nothing but these disasters and disappointments, till your father's words are fulfilled upon you. We parted soon after, for I made him little answer, and I saw him no more. Which way he went I knew not. As for me, having some money in my pocket, I travelled to London. Oh, how strange! How strange! At the footnote, the footnote called Thesaurus, it explained what traveled means. Oh yeah. Excuse me. I traveled to London by land. That's, yeah, by land, and there, as well as on the road, had many struggles with myself what course of life I should take, and whether I should go home or to sea. As to going home, shame opposed the best emotions that offered to my thoughts, and it immediately occurred to me how I should be laughed at among the neighbors, and should be ashamed to see, not my father and mother only, but even everybody else, from whence I have since often observed how incongruous, is it incongruous? Incongruous, yes, and irrational the common temper of mankind is, especially of youth, to that reason which ought to guide them in such case, viz., that they are not ashamed to sin, and yet ashamed to repent, not ashamed of the action for which they ought justly to be esteemed fools, but are ashamed of the returning, which only can make them be esteemed wise men. In this state of life, however, I remained some time, uncertain what measures to take and what course of life to lead. An irresistible reluctance continued to going home, and as I stayed away a while, the remembrance of the distress I had been in wore off, and as that abated, the little motion I had in my desires to return wore off with it, till at last I quite laid aside the thoughts of it, and looked out for a voyage. Oh my god. So incongruous means inappropriate. Is it incongruous? Just need to check. To double check. Oh my god.
From whence I have since often observed how incongruous and irrational the common temper of mankind is, especially of youth, to that reason which ought to guide them in such cases, viz. That they are not ashamed to sin, and yet are ashamed to repent, not ashamed of the action for which they ought justly to be esteemed fools, but are ashamed of the returning, which only can make them be esteemed wise men.
I see. Oh, Jesus Christ, I have so much underestimated this book. Yeah, really should give more thoughts about it, and continue, putting in some hard work. Yeah, so here it comes, chapter 2. Chapter 2 of Robinson Crusoe. That evil influence which carried me first away from my father's house, which hurried me into the wild and indigested notion of raising my fortune, and that impressed those conceits so forcibly upon me as to make me deaf to all good advice, and to the entreaties and even the commands of my father. I say, the same influence, whatever it was, presented the most unfortunate of all enterprises to my view, and I went on board a vessel bound to the coast of Africa, or, as our sailors vulgarly call it, a voyage to where?
Guinea.
To Guinea. Oh, it's called Guinea. A voyage to Guinea. It was my great misfortune that in all these adventures I did not ship myself as a sailor, when though I might indeed have worked a little harder than ordinary, yet at the same time I should have learnt the duty and office of a foremast man, and in time might have qualified myself for a mate or lieutenant or lieutenant in American accent, if not for a master, but as it was always my fate to choose for the worse, so I did here, for having money in my pocket and good clothes upon my back. I would always go on board in the habit of a gentleman, and so I neither had any business in the ship nor learned to do any. It was my lot, first of all, to fall into pretty good company in London, which does not always happen to such loose and misguided young fellows as I then was, the devil generally not omitting to lay some snare for them very early. But it was not so with me. I first got acquainted with the master of a ship who had been on the coast of Guinea, and who, having had very good success there, was resolved to go again. So yeah, I just need to see the thesaurus below the text, the main text of the book. Thesaurus. So why it has to explain what learnt means. It's equivalent, completely the same in meaning to learned. It's just a form, it's just another form of spelling, the past tense and the past participle of learn in English, Is it not, or am I gravely mistaken again? Oh crap. Yeah, just need to check if my assumptions, align with this thesaurus. Thesaurus, not the thirst. I just need to see if my assumptions, my wild assumptions, align with this thesaurus. Yeah. Let's continue. This captain, taking a fancy to my conversation, which was not at all disagreeable at that time, hearing me say I had a mind to see the world, told me if I would go the voyage with him I should be at no expense. I should be his messmate and his companion, and if I could carry anything with me, I should have all the advantage of it that the trade would admit, and perhaps I might meet with some encouragement. I embraced the offer, and entering into a strict friendship with this captain, who was an honest, plain-dealing man, I went the voyage with him, and carried a small adventure with me, which by the disinterested honesty of my friend the captain, I increased very considerably, for I carried about 40 pounds in such toys and trifles as the captain directed me to buy. These 40 pounds I had mustered together by the assistance of some of my relations whom I corresponded with, and who, I believe, got my father, or at least my mother, to contribute so much as that to my first adventure. This was the only voyage which I may say was successful in all my adventures, which I owe to the integrity and honesty of my friend the captain, under whom also I got a competent knowledge of the mathematics and the rules of navigation, learned how to keep an account of the ship's course, take an observation, and in short to understand some things that were needful to be understood by a sailor. For as he took delight to instruct me, I took delight to learn. And in a word, this voyage made me both a sailor and a merchant, for I brought home 5 pounds 9 ounces of gold dust for my adventure, which yielded me in London, at my return, almost 300 pounds, and this filled me with those aspiring thoughts which have since so completed my ruin. Yet even in this voyage I had my misfortunes too, particularly that I was continually sick, being thrown into a violent calenture by the excessive heat of the climate, our principal trading being upon the coast from latitude of 15 degrees north even to the line itself. I was now set up for Guinea. Is it Guinea or Guinea? Yeah, I was now set up for a Guinea trader, and my friend, to my great misfortune, dying soon after his arrival, I resolved to go the same voyage again, and I embarked in the same vessel with one who was his mate in the former voyage. Yeah. Voyage. Yeah, it's... No, I didn't got that wrong. It's just felt pretty damn awkward to say that word, because I don't quite usually say that word in daily conversations, and anything that has anything to do with my my work and the tasks that I often got myself involved with. Yeah, so yeah, everything happens for a reason. Yeah, even anything that hasn't happened or will never happen also has a reason. Yeah, so it appears to me, at least so far as I can perceive. Yeah, just double checking the thesaurus here. Thesaurus. Jesus Christ, I almost always mispronounce this word. Thesaurus, not thesaurus, but instead thesaurus, not thesaurus, not thesaurus, but thesaurus. Yes. Thesaurus. Repeat after me. Thesaurus. 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 Let's double check the thesaurus. Thesaurus. Let's double check the thesaurus in case I overlooked anything crucially or terribly important. Okay. Yeah, so Calentua. It's not pronounced calenture, but instead it's calentua. Feverish delirium supposedly caused by the heat in the tropics. Oh, I see. Calentua, not Dalentua. Calentua. Let's see how we pronounce that. Calentua. Yeah. Let's continue. So, oh Jesus Christ. I was now set up for a Guinea trader and my friend, to my great misfortune, dying soon after his arrival. I resolved to go to the same voyage again, and I embarked in the same vessel with one who was his mate in the former voyage. and had now get the command of the ship. This was the unhappiest voyage that ever man made, for though I did not carry quite 100 pounds of my new gained wealth, so that I had 200 pounds left, which I had lodged with my friend's widow, who was very just to me, yet I fell into terrible misfortunes. The first was this: our ship making her course towards the Canary Islands, or rather between those islands and the African shore, was surprised in the grey of the morning by a Turkish rover of Sally, who gave chase to us with all the sail she could make. We crowded also as much canvas as our yards would spread, or our masts carry, to get clear. But finding the pirate gained upon us, and would certainly come up with us in a few hours, we prepared to fight, our ship having 12 guns, and the rogue 18. Oh my God. About 3 in the afternoon he came up with us, and bringing to, by mistake, just athwart our quarter, instead of athwart our stern, as he intended, we brought 8 of our guns to bear on that side, and poured in a broadside upon him, which made him sheer off again, after returning our fire, and pouring in also his small shout from near 200 men which he had on board. However, we had not a man touched. All our men keeping close, he prepared to attack us again, and we to defend ourselves. But laying us on board the next time upon our other quarter, he entered 60 men upon our decks, who immediately fell to cutting and hacking the sails and rigging. We plied then with small shout, half pikes, powder chests, and such like, and cleared our deck of them twice. However, to cut short this melancholy part of our story, our ship being disabled, and 3 of our men killed, and 8 wounded, we were obliged to yield, and were carried all prisoners into Soli, a port belonging to the Moors. The usage I had there was not so dreadful as at first I apprehended, nor was I carried up the country to the Emperor's court, as the rest of our men were, but was kept by the captain of the rover as his proper prize, and made his slave, being young and nimble, and fit for his business. At this surprising change of my circumstances, from a merchant to a miserable slave, I was perfectly overwhelmed, and now I looked back upon my father's prophetic discourse to me, that I should be miserable and have none to relieve me, which I thought was now so effectually brought to pass that I could not be worse. For now the hand of heaven had overtaken me, and I was undone without redemption. But alas, this was but a taste of the misery I was to go through, as will appear in the squeal of this story, as my new patron or master had taken me home to his house. So I was in the hopes that he would take me with him when he went to sea again, believing that it would sometime or other be his fate to be taken by a Spanish or Portugal man of war, and that then I should be set at liberty. But this hope of mine was soon taken away, for when he went to sea, he left me on shore to look after his little garden, and do the common drudgery of slaves about his house. And when he came home again from his cruise, he ordered me to lie in the cabin to look after the ship. Here I meditated nothing but my escape, and what method I might take to effect it, but found no way that had the least probability in it. Nothing presented to make the supposition of its rational, for I had nobody to communicate it to that would embark with me, no fellow slave, no Englishman. Irishman or Scotchman, but myself, so that for 2 years, though I often pleased myself with the imagination, yet I never had the least encouraging prospects of putting it in practice. After about 2 years, an odd circumstance presented itself, which put the old thought of making some attempt for my liberty again in my head. My patron lying at home longer than usual, without fitting out his ship, which, as I heard, was for want of money. He used constantly, once or twice a week, sometimes oftener if the weather was fair, to take the ship's pinnace and go out into the road of fishing. And as he always took me and young Maresco with him to row the boat, we made him very merry, and I proved very dexterous. Is it dexterity? The derivatives of dexterity. Dexterous, yeah. Dexterous, showing or having skill, yeah. And I proved very dexterous in catching fish, insomuch that sometimes he would send me with a Moor, one of his kinsmen, and the youth, the Maresco, as they called him, to catch a dish of fish for him. It happened one time that, going fishing in a calm morning, a fog rose so thick that, though we were not half a league from the shore, we lost sight of it, and rowing we knew not whither or which way. We labored all day and all the next night, and when the morning came, we found we pulled off to sea. So with yeah, is it pinnace or penis? Pinnace. Pinnace. Okay, pinnace. Pinnace, not penis, but pinnace. So awkward. Oh my god, this book is so awkward to read. Drudgery, yeah, I pronounced that right, I suppose. So it means slave labor, is it? Drudgery. Toil, work, grit, swing, slavery, yeah, kind of like slave labor, yeah. Okay, continue. Let's resume. Instead of pulling in for the shore, and that we were at least 2 leagues from the shore, however, we got well in again, though with a great deal of labor and some danger, for the wind began to blow pretty fresh in the morning, but we were all very hungry. But our patron, warned by this disaster, resolved to take more care of himself for the future, and having lying by him the longboat of our English ship that he had taken, he resolved he would not go a-fishing any more without a compass and some provision. So he ordered the carpenter of the ship, who also was an English slave, to build a little state-room or cabin in the middle of the longboat, like that of a barge, with a place to stand behind it to steer and haul home the main sheet, the room before for a hand or two to stand and work the sails. She sailed with what we call a shoulder of mutton sail, and the boom jibbed over the top of the cabin, which lay very snug and low, and had in it room for him to lie, with a slave or two, and a table to eat on, with some small lockers to put in some bottles of such liquor as he thought fit to drink, and his bread, rice, and coffee. We went frequently out with this boat a fishing, and as I was most dexterous to catch fish for him, he never went without me. It happened that he had appointed to go out in this boat, either for pleasure or for fish, with 2 or 3 Moors of some distinction in that place, and for whom he had provided extraordinarily, and had therefore set on board the boat overnight a larger store of provisions than ordinary, and had ordered me to get ready 3 fuses with powder and shot, which were on board his ship, for that they designed some sport of fowling as well as fishing. I got all things ready as he had directed, and waited the next morning with the boat washed clean, her ancient and pendants. Is it pendants?
Pendants.
Yeah, pendants out, and everything to accommodate his guests. When by and by my patron came on board alone, and told me his guests had put off going from some business that fell out, and ordered me with the man and boy as usual to go out with the boat and catch them some fish, for that his friends were to sup at his house, and commanded that as soon as I got some fish I should bring it home to his house, all which I prepared to do. This moment my former notions of deliverance darted into my thoughts, for now I found I was likely to have a little ship at my command, and my master being gone, I prepared to furnish myself, not for fishing business, but for a voyage, though I knew not, neither did I so much as consider, whether I should steer anywhere to get out of that place was my desire. My first contrivance was to make a pretense to speak to this Moor, to get something for our substance, not substance, subsistence. Subsistence. What does that mean? The action of maintaining or supporting oneself. Isn't it the same meaning as substance? Subsistence, is it? Subsistence. Oh my god, this is so hard.
Contrivance.
It's contrivance. I feel so demoralized by reading this book. Oh my god. So yeah, one of my audiences, he posted, you sound, far from, you sound far, something like you sound far from sounding British, since even your English language sounds far from native speaker. Jesus Christ, has had me so demoralized. Yeah. So my first contrivance, my contrivance was to make a pretense to speak to this Moor to get something for our subsistence on board, for I told him we must not presume to eat of our patron's bread. He said that was true, so he brought a large basket of rusk or biscuit, and 3 jars of fresh water into the boat. I knew where my patron's case of bottles stood, which it was evident by the make were taken out of some English prize, and I conveyed them into the boat while the Moor was on shore, as if they had been there before our master. I conveyed also a great lump of beeswax into the boat, which weighed about 1/2 weight, with a parcel of twine or thread, a hatchet, a saw, and a hammer, all of which were of great use to us afterwards, especially the wax to make candles. Another trick I tried upon him, which he innocently came into also. His name was Ismail, which they call Muley or Mole. So I called him Mole. Said I, our patron's guns are on board the boat. Can you not get a little powder and shot? It may be we may kill some make you some alchemies, a fowl like our curlews, for ourselves. For I know he keeps the gunner's stores in the ship. Yes, says he, I will bring him some. And accordingly he brought a great leather pouch, which held 1.5 pounds of a powder, or rather more, and another wood shot, that had 5 or 6 pounds, with some bullets, and put all into the boat. At the same time I had found some powder of my master's in the great cabin, with which I filled one of the large bottles in the case, which was almost empty, pouring what was in it into another, and thus furnished with everything needful, we sailed out of the port to fish. The castle, which is at the entrance of the port, knew who we were and took no notice of us, and we were not above 1 mile out of the port before we hauled in our sail and set us down to fish. The wind blew from the NNE, which was contrary to my desire, for had it blown suddenly, not suddenly, is it? Southerly. For had it blown southerly, I had been sure to have made the coast of Spain, and at least reached to the Bay of Cadiz. But my resolutions were, blow which way it would, I would be gone from that horrid place where I was, and leave the rest to fate. After we had fished some time and caught nothing, for when I had fish on my hook, I would not pull them up, that he might not see them. I said to the Moor, this will not do, our master will not be thus served, we must stand farther off. He, thinking no harm, agreed, and being in the head of the boat, set the sails, and as I had the helm, I ran the boat out near a league farther, and then brought hers to, as if I would fish, when, giving the boy the helm, I stepped forward to where the Moor was, and making as if I stooped for something behind him, I took him by surprise with my arm under his waist, and tossed him clear overboard into the sea. He rose immediately, for he swam like a cork, and called to me, begged to be taken in, told me he would go all over the world with me. He swam so strong after the boat that he would have reached me very quickly, there being but little wind, upon which I stepped into the cabin, and fetching one of the fowling pieces, I presented it at him, and told him I had done him no hurt, and if he would be quiet, I would do him none. But, said I, you swim well enough to reach to the shore, and the sea is calm. Make the best of your way to shore, and I will do you no harm. But if you come near the boat, I will shoot you through the head, for I am resolved to have my liberty. So he turned himself about and swam for the shore, and I make no doubt but he reached it with ease, for he was an excellent swimmer. I could have been content to have taken this Moor with me, and have drowned the boy, but there was no venturing to trust him. When he was gone, I turned to the boy, whom they called Surrey, and said to him, Surrey, if you will be faithful to me, I will make you a great man, but if you will not stroke your face to be true to me, that is, swear by whom I can, is it? Mahomet, that and his father's beard, I must throw you into the sea too. The boy smiled in my face and spoke so innocently that I could not distrust him, and swore to be faithful to me, and go all over the world with me. Oh my god. So, I've never heard of Mahomet. Who is that guy? Muhammad. Muhammad. Oh my god. That's crap. Oh my god. Thank you guys very much for watching and listening to this video. If should you have watched thus far and still feeling keen or eager to finish this video off, never mind. I suppose I just need to take some rest and to revise what I read in this filming session, and next time I become a sucker again. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching and listening to this video again, and stay safe, stay put, remain steadfast, and have faith. See you next time on YouTube, if the Almighty is still willing. Take care, bye bye, good night, cheers.